keeping the other team's offense off the field as long as possible. My other big thing with this, and you tie into it, is Cam Miller 100%?
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation, let it be known that when you host this show and you are a big meanie like Kyler Neal and you talk all that smack on Jamie Williams and Matt Frazee, we kick you out and we replace you with the Rev. I kid, but Kyler is busy tonight and we are so thankful to have the Rev coming through with us on the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Boys, in North Dakota, it's going to be like 30 degrees tonight. It's getting cold, but the FCS season is heating up. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. And thank you to our FCS Gold members. The subscribers continue to rise. We hope you enjoy this thing ad-free. By the way, this sounds insane, but we're about 5 weeks away from playoff time. If you want a chance to win the $50 grand prize for the bracket challenge we will be running through FCS Gold, make sure you subscribe. 99 cents a month. You can cancel after 2 months, and you can compete for that bracket challenge.
Don't worry, Bernhardt. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, Matt, you don't have to pay for it, but heart you forever. Rev, you want to say a quick hello on this crazy week we got coming up before we kick into the top 6 topics?
Yeah, man, I figured this is actually a better role for me. I'm used to being the broke-ass Kyler, not have to be as smart as Jamie is. So that's good. I'm going to fly through this one. This is good.
Yeah, you're gonna be solid. Thanks again for holding down the fort last week. Incredible episode. Taco King was hilarious. Zach of the Blue Bloods. Wow. Like, if there's any way to all of us not feel intelligent, it's that human there. He is an incredible human at the FCS football stuff. And Rev, you did a great job. Kyler with the hosting. I will say this, gents, before we kick into our top 6 topics. Must be a pattern this season because I was unable to react to UND because of military drill. This coming Sunday, my beautiful bride Allison and I are going down to Minneapolis to see one of my favorite bands, Dayseeker. Shout out if you love them. And we won't have any kids. You know, we got downtown hotel, going to get a nice meal, check out the concert. But that takes me all the way through Tuesday. So next week's episode, number 1, congrats to the Bunnies if you won. I still respect your fan base. I won't be there for the episode. It'll be Jamie, Kyler, and the crew. Number 2, though, that'll be live next week. Next week's FCS Fans Nation episode is going to be live through YouTube. So make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube. If you want to join, you can throw your comments in there, and it should be a good time. So with that being said, speaking of a good time, there's nothing better than talking about the top 6 topics in the FCS.
What are FCS fans talking and posting about nonstop? It's time for the top 6 topics of the week.
Some of the best humans that I know, Mr. Cody Werlinger is one of them. And he kicks us off, guys. Could we not start anywhere else than with the latest game in the history of humanity out on the Mountain Time with Montana State thrashing Idaho? Will they move to number 2 or even number 1? This is an opportunity, gents, to discuss the beatdown in Bozeman with Montana State destroying Idaho. And then where do you see them going within the rankings, especially with the Dakota Marker right on the cusp of things? Mr. Williams, you are the official Stats Top 25 voter. Love to get your take on this, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I already have Montana State at number 2, and they're going to remain there this week, not number 1. Just if you look at the resumes, this is their first ranked wins. They finally played somebody, and they did what they're supposed to against everybody else. But then they come in against Idaho, who, to me, Idaho's kind of a wounded duck, unfortunately. Quarterback, they're on their 3rd and 4th string type of guys, and Tommy Malott was phenomenal, by the way. He kind of carried that game. And I think Brent Vigen and company have been doing a nice job with Malott. They waited till they needed him to dominate on both facets to do it. Because he didn't have a ton of rushing yards coming in. and then he wound up with 140 this past week. So I think that was a really strong game plan, a good win. I feel for Idaho. They've played so many tough games. They're just so beat up that while this is a really nice win, it's not enough to push them to number one. And talking about the polls, there's this thing called slot voting, and South Dakota State and North Dakota State didn't lose, and they actually both won fairly handily. You can talk about 24-3 all you want, but it was 3, so there's no way any of that moves. The loser of the marker might drop to 3 next week, as long as Montana State continues to win. But no, unfortunately, I don't see them moving to 2 or 1, though they will remain number 2 on my ballot.
So can I ask 2 questions with that? 2 questions, just curiosity. You know me, I have never voted. I would be terrible at it. More clarification with the first one. Slot voting. You're just saying that so many people within the Stats Top 25 will just slot vote that just logistically Montana State doesn't really have a prayer to jump NDSU, SDSU because they both won. Is that correct?
Exactly. And they'll look at who won. They'll leave them there. As soon as somebody lost, they'll drop them down and move the other teams up. It feels like there's a lot of non-evaluation and just, and there's not a lot of transparency. So I don't really know, but you can look at the results and tell what the voters are doing and where they're holding teams up and pushing them down as they win and lose. So that's kind of what the slot voting looks like. I despise it. Sometimes it is okay. You slot up here because the certain loses, but I never, and I see the comment a lot. X team doesn't move until they lose. If somebody else has played better, yes, they do. It's that easy. So I get that comment weekly because I don't have SDSU number 1 and I haven't for a while. But NDSU and Montana State, to me, have looked better overall. Montana State has an FBS win. SDSU played Augustana, so I penalized them a little bit for that. Now, SDSU wins the marker with a decent win. They could go from 3 to 1 easily, and that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If I did vote, I'd definitely go resume at the time. It's hard to ignore Montana State's, and I don't care if it's New Mexico, whoever, FBS win, undefeated, top 2 conference. They're 7-0. They just got a top 10 win. Like, I think I'd put them at number 1 this week, but I could
have no issue with anybody who does.
Yeah, number 1. I'd put them at number 1 this week, knowing that what's about to happen in Fargo is probably going to cause some ripple effects right away. Rev, how do you feel about the Bobcats right now? Is there a little bit of disrespect amongst those 3? Are we just going off of past assumptions that, well, it's all going to end with them losing to a Dakota anyways, or should we step up to the plate here better as fans and voters? What do you think?
Well, to tag on to Jamie's point, Jamie's doing something called slot shaming, and that's okay. Okay, you want to slot shame the voters. This is where there needs to be accountability in the polls, and there are certain polls, one of the ones I vote in, that when you go there, you can see everybody's vote, 1 through 25. So, yes, if somebody gets upset at Jamie's slot shaming, Jamie's doing the right thing. Now, on this game, like, I've had Montana State number 1 in polls. I actually, believe I had them last week. I haven't done my poll for this week. I have no problem people voting number 1. My only thing is, one thing you have to look at is strength of schedule. And their strength of schedule compared to North Dakota State, South Dakota State is abysmal. It's like 76 in the FCS. So, the resume isn't necessarily there other than an FBS win, which they were favored to win before the kickoff happened. So, vote them number 1. If it makes you feel good, it doesn't matter at this point. We're not close to playoffs. Like, they can be number 1. They're not going to be number 1 next week because whoever wins the marker will probably get the number 1 spot because that is a win over a high-ranked team with and they both have very tough strength schedules. So.
Yeah. So when it comes to resume, I'm trying something new myself this year to help me break ties and stuff. And I've created a resume score based off the types of wins, the types of losses. And on the metric that I created, and SOS is part of it, Montana State's the 9th best resume based off of that metric. And that's before going into last week. So they'll rise some. But Idaho had the best resume. Now, does that mean I'm going to put Idaho number 1? No, but if it comes down to if I'm trying to figure out a playoff bracket or something, that's where I'm going to go. If I've got 2 teams that I'm not sure about, I'm going to look at that. So we'll see how it comes out later in the year. I'm tweaking it, but just looking at how the types of wins paired with the strength of schedule, Montana State still has work to do, and it's coming because they got Sac State, UC Davis, and Montana still to come. So right now, that's what it shows. But there's plenty of time. If they run the table, they're the 1 seed, most likely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It would be insanity for a Big Sky undefeated champ to not be the 1. Even if NDSU or SDSU had lost an FBS game. So that would be insanity. Yeah, I guess more to come on that one. Congrats to the Bobcats. I tweeted out, I got a feeling about Idaho. I don't know why. I thought about not sending it, but I had a feeling Idaho was going to go in there and upset them. And kudos, Ron Lowney and all the Bobcat fans. You had a huge victory, and I was completely wrong. So, okay, the background tonight on YouTube, guys, is a Dakota Marker, a rock, which split the Dakota territories. And the big matchup is on ESPN2. The Bunnies, the 2-time defending national champs, are heading up to North Dakota State. Number 2 versus number 1, national television. Make sure you ignore that Texas-Georgia game at the time. And Cody and Dustin have 2 questions combined here. Cody says, what are the keys for NDSU to beat SDSU? And what are the keys for SDSU to beat NDSU? Also, what do you think the spread will be when it first comes out? I'll cover the spread one here first. You guys can jump in if you want. I think it's going to be a pick 'em. I think you're going to see 2.5 right off the bat. And then Dustin says, is Cam Miller still nursing an injury? If so, will that give SDSU an advantage this week? Gentlemen, here comes the promo time. As is tradition, I love this, was invited on to Jackrabbit Illustrated on Tuesday to join them for their live episode. So I'll be with Brendan while he drinks his chocolate milk and say hi to Chad and the whole crew and Ben and everybody. And so, as is tradition, I'm not going to say anything about this game. If you want to hear my thoughts on this game and pure NDSU, SDSU conversation where there's fans and there will be a little smack talk, but the bias is gone, make sure you subscribe to FCS Fans Nation on YouTube. Make sure you follow Jackrabbit Illustrated. I will be on there live Tuesday night. I will give my game prediction. Fun fact, I'm 3-1 in that game prediction the last 4 years. And if you do the quick math, that means I've only picked NDSU once. So you'll have to tune in for that one. With that, I give the floor to Jamie and the Rev as I have no more input until Tuesday. And I will start with you, Rev. What do you think? What are the keys to this game?
Well, first I had to switch into my marker ensemble for this question. So
what a hat.
Yeah, there's this really, really nice guy named Matt actually got me this hat. Really, just salt of the earth individual. Anyway, the key to this game, honestly, it's I think for both teams, it's controlling the field, and what I mean by that is keeping the other team's offense off the field as long as possible. My other big thing with this, and you tie into it, is Cam Miller 100%? And if he's not, then how much of an impact does that have to the potent offense that North Dakota State has? Because South Dakota State is playing lights out right now. They've been dominant in their past 3 games. They did play Augustana and kind of, I don't want to say it was kind of slept walk through that, but they did. But the past other games against like Northern Iowa, Youngstown State, they have absolutely obliterated the opposing team. So, like I said, I think the biggest key is to keep the others team offense off of the field, right? And have your offense out there and be able to play your game. Control the clock, control the ball. Don't turn it over. Cam Miller hasn't thrown any picks this year, so I don't think that's going to be an issue on his side. But that's, to my opinion, that's just what it comes down to. Being able to play your game and keeping the opposing offense off the field.
Jamie Williams, as much as I want to jump in here, I have to refrain. Look at this blue and green on Wikipedia on the screen. This has been quite the rivalry. Pretty consistent on who takes it for a while. What do you got, buddy?
Well, a few weeks ago, I would have just said South Dakota State's just going to run the ball down their throat. But over the past few weeks, that North Dakota State rush defense has kind of come around. And right now, they're 16th in the country at 107 yards against a game, which seems terrible for them, and it kind of is. South Dakota State's at 97.3 a game that they allow. So which team can control the ground game? Because I kind of trust both quarterbacks to be able to make plays from the pocket if they need to, and use their legs if they need to, as long as Cam's good to go. But neither one of them really turned the ball over in bad spots, but if one of them is going to turn over in a bad spot, honestly, in recent history, it's been Mark. Mm-hmm. So if he can protect the ball and they can get that ground game going with the Johnson boys and Mark and Kirby Voorhees, they ran for 400 and some yards yesterday. Even Chase Mason came in and had 160. So I think controlling the ground game, whichever team can get off the field to keep that run game from churning for the opponent is going to have the advantage. I'm expecting a really good game, but this game might be over in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, this could be very, very quick.
How much do you guys put into stock at all to like going into Fargo, where South Dakota State has just kicked the living crap out of NDSU? Do you think that actually benefits South Dakota State mentally, because it's almost like a standard? Like last year when they won the Rock, they walked to it, and after the game they said, we were taught now to walk to the Rock after we win because it's just an expectation. We don't run to it. Like, or do you think like North Dakota State just getting their can kicked so much is so sick of it? Like, is there anything to the mental game here, or is that just like dreams, hopes, and wishes because these teams know each other so well? What do you think, Jamie? I'll start with you.
South Dakota State's not going to be intimidated by the Dome like a lot of teams come in. A lot of teams come into the Dome, they're already down 7-10 to nothing. That won't be the case with South Dakota State. But look at all that blue there at the bottom. Mm-hmm. North Dakota State's going to want to finally turn this tide because South Dakota State's been the team for the last 2.5 years. And North Dakota State wants to be their turn. So I don't think where the game's played is going to make a big difference. It's going to be who executes the best.
Any mental impacts here, Rev? What do you think?
I always wonder about things like this, like how much of this is just a mental effect, but how much of it's actual true hubris when it comes to things like we're just going to walk to the Rock because we expect it. Like, I get that the image that you're putting out and doing that and the confidence and swagger, but it does sometimes, I wonder if it goes too far and becomes complacency in a weird way. But there is a mental game to rivalries, right? You don't want to go into a rivalry game letting your opponent think you're not confident, or you don't want them to think you're scared or anything like that. So, that's why this one's one of the most fun rivalry games to watch in the FCS because of the physical and the mental games that are played.
It is going to be incredible. I have so many things to say. Oh my God, do I have so many things to say? I am pumped for this game, and I'm going to give Brendan a little bit of credit here, and then we'll move on. Yeah, I'm where he's at. Like he said it so well, where he's like, lose to us in the playoffs a few times, get your butt kicked by us consistently, and then see how much you don't like South Dakota State. And it's like, myself and people in Fargo, we're there, man. We're so sick. We're so sick of it. So it's going to be a fun environment in there. And I won't be on again next week. Congrats to the Jacks if they pull off the win. I really love your fan base and your people down there. So it should be a fun time together. All right, guys, let's move on out to the Big Sky country, the future Mountain West. Mr. Evan Wilson says, how impressive was Northern Colorado's win? And are they a dark horse in the Big Sky, says Mr. Evan Wilson. By the way, sorry to go backwards a little bit. Stay tuned if you just want to turn it off for NDSU, SDSU. A little segment called Game of the Week's coming back here at the end to predict this marker game for those gentlemen, Jamie Williams and the Rev, here at the end. All right, on to the Big Sky. How impressive was Northern Colorado's win, and are they a dark horse in the Big Sky? Evan, I'm going to use your question as a jumping off point to not only talk Northern Colorado, but the Big Sky as a whole, because there seems to be some concerns about this conference. Jamie Williams, what did you think about Northern Colorado's big win? And then what about the Big Sky?
I mean, I'm happy to see Northern Colorado finally get a win in the Big Sky. Our buddy Ben Schlager, who's been around the page for a long time, devoted fan. Good to see that for him. I don't know what to make of Weber. Last week I guess they did everything they could to beat Montana in Washington Grizzly Stadium, and then all of a sudden they lay an absolute egg against Northern Colorado. I watched a little bit of that game. Richie Munoz was a shell of what he was the week before. They just didn't have it going. But once Northern Colorado got going, they were feeling it, kind of thing. It was one of those things where they were just feeling it. They were just filtering to the ball, and it was a good win for them. I don't see them threatening anybody in the Big Sky. I think they're going to finish right about where they are right there, unfortunately. This might be the only one they get. I don't know if they've played Cal Poly yet or not. That'd be the only one I'd really say. But, yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Northern Colorado, but I don't see much more coming from them.
What do you think about the Big Sky as a whole? Because Kyler Neal here says, Jamie, you saw that message. He said, make sure this gets read on the podcast or I will fight you. He said, have fun on the podcast tonight. I know how great you guys are. I know you're way better at this than me. I really, really am thankful to have you guys on the podcast. And he says, P.S. if anyone asks about EW was 3 plays away from now being 5-1. Instead, they are 2-4. They are better than the record will show and can beat everyone left on their schedule or lose to everyone left on their schedule. But they are beating top 10 Davis next week. Book it. Heart you, Rev. Heart you all. So there you go. And he also says the last few weeks in the podcast, the Big Sky stinks this year. Okay. Those are Kyler's words. Does the Big Sky stink, Rev? Is it bad?
See, I was going to actually quote the poet laureate Kyler Neal and say the Big Sky stinks, but I don't know. I don't think they're bad. Maybe bad by their standards. They're just down this year. It seems like you've got Montana State, and then you kind of got Davis, and then you've got kind of a mid-tier, and then the rest. And it's just not like the conference where you look and you're like, man, they're going to get a ton of bids in the playoffs. Like they might get 3 or 4, but it's not like one of those when you see arguments like who might get 5 bids this year, who might get 6. I don't think they'll have that many will do it. I think they're just going to keep beating up on each other. But to the actual question, Northern Colorado, I'm glad they got the win too because Ben's a great guy. I like Ben a lot. I gave him crap when SFA beat Northern Colorado, but that's all they're going to get, right? When you look at this conference as a whole, it's basically Montana State's to run through. Unless they stumble somewhere along the way, which is potentially possible. Weber, I can't figure them out either. You beat Montana, but you also lose to, Lamar. So I don't know. I think this conference is just not where it has been in previous years. And maybe there's a little more parity coming into it, or maybe it's just with injuries and everything else going on. It's just an off year for the conference.
Okay, let's say Montana State is a semifinal team, right? And let's say it's a marker matchup and the bracket just lands where in Brookings, NDSU is visiting SDSU. You got Montana State. Are we sold that there's Mercers and Central Arkansas and others that can find their way through one of those corners past a UC Davis, past even with how Montana's looked? Like, are we sold on that, Jamie?
I really, really like Mercer's defense. I think they're a good team. I don't know that they're to the level of these top 3 that we've been talking about. And then South Dakota is the next team up for now, but I want to see them against the rest of the Dakotas in the Valley. They've been pretty good overall, but kind of like Montana State, you haven't really seen them against anybody yet. So I don't know what to make of them. But, Villanova, Mercer, somebody from the Southland, somebody from the UAC, it feels like quarterfinals at best for that group.
Yeah, so the tournament this year, we're just going to switch it. So it's like the semifinals is 3 teams and one gets a bye. Montana State, SDSU, and no, I kid FCS Nation. Jeepers, holy moly. All right, well, congrats to Northern Colorado and good luck to the Big Sky. The reason we're not going to dive any further into them is because the 6th question in the top 6 topics actually is going to give us an opportunity to reevaluate that conference as a whole. Anyways, we could not ask for a better person on this podcast for Jason Plotkin's question. Jason asking, at what point will we be able to make sense of the Southland race? Man, if we just had a preacher to come up and say a sermon about the Southland, that would be beautiful. He says incarnate word or Selah. I know it's not Selah. I know. Or different point. All right, Rev, this is your world, man. The Southland race. Where are we sitting with the Southland?
I mean, it's incarnate words to lose. They have come out week over week. They have looked better. They exercised the demons of losing to Nichols from last year really easily Saturday. And thankfully, a certain guy from Fargo wasn't at that game either to bring some bad juju. So, so to me, it's Incarnate Word to loses. But where it gets interesting is that are there teams that could beat Incarnate Word? And yeah, there are two. One is Southeastern Louisiana, as you know, they are running through conference. Their ground game is on point. Their defense has stepped up. They also did beat Eastern Washington, which, okay, whatever. But they still did get that. But the other team, and this is going to sound homerish, it's Stephen F. Austin. Stephen F. Austin is probably one of the most balanced teams in the conference. Stephen F. Austin would only be a one-loss team had Colby Carthel not made some really dumb coaching decisions in Lake Charles and sitting out there All-American kicker and leaving points off the board. But look at SFA Lamar this past weekend was a statement game for SFA because Lamar had been picked by some, including myself, to be a dark horse in the conference. And SFA went into Beaumont and held them off, but they had their way with them for a lot of the game. So I think SFA plays Southeastern Louisiana this weekend in Hammond, America, USA. Shout out Hammond. It's a great town to go visit if you haven't gone. I think the winner of that, whenever they get their game against Incarnate Word, that then becomes the de facto conference championship, because it really is Incarnate Word's to lose. They do look good. And the crazy thing about Incarnate Word, and they didn't have to use it against Nichols, they've developed a running game, and that's not what you'd expect from that team in San Antonio. They've changed it up this year, but they didn't have to bring it out against Nichols. And man, their rush defense, they took their lessons from last year. They shut down both Jalen Spears, who come off injury, and Colin Guggenheim, who is a beast. So it's hard to argue against Incarnate Word right now.
Yeah, they must have. I remember watching, and I was that guy from Fargo that doomed them last year, but I watched Nichols just kind of out physical them over and over again, especially in the run game, and talk about a flip and a 180. The Southland is interesting, Jamie, and I'd like for you to expand off of Rev stuff too, but I'll give you a second point if you could, because it's my curiosity. When you look at the standings here, you talked about slot voting. I'm gonna do slot records right now. You ready? Like uninformed slot records. Are you ready? Okay, so on the screen on YouTube, you can see the Southland overall, like 3-4, 4-2, 4-2, 3-4, 4-3. That's not bad. Southern 6-0, 3-3, 3-3, 4-3, 2-3, 2-4. Like besides Mercer, I don't know. Is the SoCon that much stronger than the Southland? Is this Kevin's jumping out of his seat? There you go. What do you think about that? Bite off that a little bit, Jamie.
Yeah, nobody else other than Mercer has really jumped up to me in the SoCon. I mean, East Tennessee State's been pretty good, but they've dropped games they shouldn't. They had a close one with Samford. Let's see. I'm looking here myself.
Rev, you look shocked and appalled by that comparison.
Yeah, so
I just was trying to count on fingers how wrong you are, but I'll let Jamie handle that.
Yeah, but I mean, Chattanooga, that's the one you got to look at, because they're now 3-3, but they're playing a lot better than that. They kind of got a little bit going this past week against Furman, 41-10, but they had two straight games to start the season where they played against FBS teams. One against Tennessee, not going to win that, and then they were right there against Georgia State. Maybe should have won that game, but they fell short, and they lose to Mercer. They've just beat Portland State, who took UC Davis to the last play of the game, and beat Idaho State. So a couple of decent teams. Then they had a defensive battle at ETSU, and then they blew out Furman. So I think Chattanooga's starting to get it going. I think this is a 2 or 3 bid conference. It might just be 2 because everybody else is kind of beating each other up. But in the Southland, I mean, I agree with Rev. It's Incarnate Words to lose, but somebody else is going to have to run the table the rest of the way to get a second bid from that conference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
100% agree.
So Southland's still a little bit lower than the SoCon, but hey, looking good. Not much more impressive than we thought.
I was gonna say what kind of hurts too, and it's a procession type thing. Like Southeastern Louisiana barely lost to Charleston State. They actually should have probably won that game. But they also had 2 FBS losses to start the year. Nichols had 2 FBS losses to start the year. A lot of the Louisiana schools in the Southland are playing 2 FBS games to get more money because they're getting their budgets cut. And that's impactful. That is impactful to how your season goes. So I think SLU is actually better than their record shows. I think Nichols is kind of what we thought they were. But yeah, Incarnate Words to win. SLU and SFA would have to run and then beat Incarnate Words or probably sniff the playoffs. I don't know. SFA, if they only go in there with a loss to McNeese, a loss to Incarnate Word, and a loss to North Texas, I think they still probably would get left out of the playoffs because the rest of their out of conference schedule was beyond weak. So
it'll be fun to see how it turns out. Make sure that you're subscribed on this YouTube channel because the Southland Sermon airs on it, hosted by the Rev. We appreciate him on that show, and we appreciate him here with us tonight. Guys, here you go. Kevin Coles. You ready, Jamie? You're getting called out. I think this is in a positive way. 5 ranked opponents, all ranging from 10 to 22, lost to unranked opponents this weekend. What does this do to Jamie's ballot, and who's going where? Okay, let me pull up the GOAT, one of them, Mr. Sam Herder. He did talk about that, and I screenshotted the tweet. Number 10, Abilene Christian goes down to North Alabama. Number 16, Illinois State got murdered by Missouri State, future FBS. Eastern Washington beats number 18, Pac-12 Sac State. Number 20, Weber goes down to Northern Colorado. And then number 22, Lamar, losing to Stephen F. Austin. There you go. Axum Rev. Those are the teams. And yeah, you've kind of said it before, Jamie. Throw a dart once you get to like 10 to 25. But what does this do to your ballot? What does it do to those teams? Do less of them drop because of the chaos? What are we looking at?
And they might drop less, but I mean, for me last week, I've got my ballot here. Weber State and Lamar weren't in my top 25 last week because I didn't see them as top 25 teams. So they were already out. They'll not obviously be in. Sac State, I had at 16. There's a solid chance they're gone. They just are. They're not inspiring anything for me. Abilene Christian, I think, is still a rankable team. It was a close-ish game, but North Alabama is really starting to get some things going. I think they're 3-1 in that conference right now, so they're going to get some people some trouble. I think we're talking about the USC in a little while, so we'll wait on that. I actually worry more about Central Arkansas right now because they lost to Abilene, and then they were a missed 2-point conversion defensive stop away from losing to West Georgia, a new team. They're going to drop another game, maybe 2. Rev and I have said it for years with this team. They just don't do enough with the talent. I'm sorry, Will, but that team should not be losing these games and playing these close games. You've got arguably the best player in the FCS on each side of the football. And one of them is performing. And I mean, they're both performing, but the rest of the team has to step up. And, I'm not a huge McElvay fan. I think he's played well. So they're one I'm worried about. I think Chattanooga comes up. Illinois State probably starts to drop too. They might fall out. They're too beat up. They're missing running backs and edge rusher, linebackers. They're in trouble. I haven't really done my ballot for this week. I like to take some time and go through it. All I can tell you is the top 4 or 5 will stay the same, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, Idaho is going to drop from 8 to probably the back third, and it's just because they're too injured.
Who's your biggest risers within this range then? I mean, 5 of them are going down. Do you look at SEMO? Are you looking at William and Mary's? Like, who is your big? Oh, okay. Here's some risers within this group.
Yeah, there's 2. One's Mercer, and the other one is SEMO.
Okay.
Those are the 2 that I'm looking at that have really shot up my rankings just week after week. There's teams like North Dakota that bounce up and down. I think Incarnate Word is going to start shooting up. They might wind up in the top 10 this week. We'll see. It's going to be pretty close. But that's kind of where I'm looking. You look at a team like Towson. They entered the rankings last week, had a struggle game. I think they still won. I'd have to go back and look for sure. I think they still wound up winning that game. It was a close one. So that's kind of where my head is right now without having really gone through it all the way yet.
Hey, Rev, I'll throw Jason Soren's quick hit question at you now to expand off this. Jason, appreciate your question. What teams are you jumping on with? What teams are you jumping off with? Within this range, who are you in for? Who are you out for?
Man, I've been in for UCA, and like Jamie's already touched on this. They are having I'll jokingly call it the Nathan Brown effect happening, but it's what it is where you don't get the most out of your talent. And it's absolutely frustrating to watch, honestly. Like I said, sorry, Will, sorry, Marvin, who's blocking me on FCS Fans Nation, but like, it's just what it is. This should not have been a team that you take a 2-point conversion stop to beat. West Georgia, they're going to be probably a decent FCS powerhouse over here. So this should have been a team that you took to the woodshed, and I wonder too, the game go way back to when they played Arkansas State, that last drive when they were up, they let them go 7 plays, 70 yards, Arkansas State win the game. And I wonder if that was just a sign of the defense as a whole. I know they were playing prevent, but just collapsing under whenever they needed to step up. Because I feel like we've seen that the past 2 weeks with them. Abilene Christian ate their lunch. Even though Abilene Christian lost, Brent Dearman is a hell of a coach at Northern Alabama. He's taking a program that has been had transitioned up, right? They're trying to get their facilities all locked down and stuff, but that's a program that could grow too. So I'm not as surprised by that result. And North Alabama is, I believe, 3-1 in the UAC, so they are doing well. So I haven't dropped off on Abilene Christian. I think the teams I'm still on, Mercer. I'm really high on Mercer because while offense wins the games, defense wins championships, and their defense is just absolutely stout. But when it comes to the top 25, I haven't even looked at mine. I'll probably go into the restroom tomorrow, do it there, have a little stinker tinker time, as I like to call it, sit there, play with my top 25 and figure it out. So,
oh man, there's based on, it's what comes out of that time that matters, not what happens while you're in there in terms of your ballot and its performance. So
I'm going to throw something out there real quick. We haven't talked about so I'm going to give you a team that I think has been really good so far that's going to finish poorly. It's going to be UC Davis. I think they're going to have a bad finish to their season.
I still say they lost to Portland State.
Yeah,
that was close.
That was close. And they're 6-1, but they've snuck away with a couple. I see them losing for sure their last 3 games, and Eastern Washington might get them too.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, Kyler's saying book it. Heard it here first. Yep. So if I hear Kyler say that this week, you definitely stole that from Jamie. That's basically what I've heard here.
Well, he definitely said Eastern would beat them. We'll see. But I definitely think they lose their last 3 games and they kind of fall off at the end.
Yeah.
Should be fun to see. Okay. Speaking of falling off at the end, rising, whatever, I love this question from Jason to end the top 6. Over midway, and who do you think is conference champions or contenders? I love this because we're going to do it structurally. Okay. Make sure you're watching on YouTube or free with no ads as your FCS Gold. And I'm pulling up the standings right now, and we are going to go through these conferences and just right now who we think is going to be the conference champ. If you just can't decide, you can say who are the top 2 contenders. And we'll start with the Big Sky. Jamie, Montana State, UC Davis on top right now. Who do you think's the conference champ or contender midway through?
I think Montana State runs away with this, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
Okay. Taking the cats out of the Big Sky. We're moving on to the CAA. Now, this one's interesting. On the screen here, we're going to discount Delaware. They don't count. Rhode Island and Villanova, both 5-1, 5-1. New Hampshire, Richmond, 4-2. But in conference play, all those teams are 2-0 right now. Super, super interesting. Clicking just into their schedules, like a Rhode Island's one you wouldn't expect. Rhode Island plays Maine at home, Monmouth. They got to travel to Delaware, but then Albany and Bryant. Like, that's a favorable schedule. Okay, I hate to go away from your, Rev. I'll give you the next one. But who do you think for the CAA, Jamie, just because it's your old territory? What do you got?
I still think this is Villanova's conference to lose. I think they're going to start heading downhill and picking up a lot of wins. Rhode Island, I do think, has a really, really good shot to be a playoff team, though, finally.
All right. Yeah, they've had a heck of a year, and I think they're definitely going to cross that threshold of where it's going to matter.
I've got 3 bids from there, I think.
All right. We'll see how it goes. Independent, shout out Sacred Heart Merrimack. Shout out to you. The Ivy League. Oh, okay. Well, conference champs. Dartmouth is going to win that one. They're obviously on top, and they have the greatest unofficial mascot of all time. Shout out to Kagi. There we go. Here we go. The MEAC, NC Central. Kind of no surprise the way things have kind of been going. 5-2 overall. What do you think, Rev? We're going to look at NC Central being the representative out of the MEAC this year?
Yeah, the MEAC is just the team I thought was going to be better this year is Morgan State. Morgan State's been pretty decimated on offense, and their defense just can't get off the field. So yeah, I think it's NC Central's to go ahead and go through. And by the way, NC Central is probably one of the best teams in the CAA this year also, because they've absolutely had fun playing teams in that conference.
Heck yeah. Preston Adams, make sure you correct us if we're wrong. All right, buddy. Missouri Valley. Oh boy. Okay. We're going to skip the Missouri Valley because we got a game prediction that might affect that here at the end of it. So make sure you stay tuned. Northeast Conference. Back to you, Jamie. Duquesne, CCSU, man, just teams people don't think about. Give me the Northeast champ.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds chalky, but Duquesne looks like the best team there. Although I will say Central Connecticut could give them a run. I'm gonna go with Duquesne.
Very well, very well. Moving into the Patriot League 1x1. Holy Cross, holy crap! Nobody's surprised that even though JMU and those FBS teams go and steal coaches. Right now, they're 2-0 in conference play, but they're 3-4 overall. Looks like Georgetown Bucknell is looking okay. What's up with Lafayette? I thought that was the team. What's going on with Lafayette here? Jamie, you want to address that one?
Yeah, just they don't have it this year. I don't know why. I haven't really seen a lot of them. I've watched a few games, but I'm just not enticed to watch them. I mean, they got shut out by Georgetown this week. It's not good. They just don't have it this year.
I'm just going to bank off of Holy Cross rolling that one. Pioneer League, we're not even going to pretend like we all watched the Pioneer League, but Drake and Dayton.
It's Dayton, baby.
It's Dayton?
It's
all right,
Dayton.
Rev, go for it. Why is it Dayton?
Man, they just have been fun to watch this year. I know Drake has got the win against, Eastern Washington, which has been
Rev go.
tough. I mean, but Dayton beat St. Francis, right? They barely lost to Indiana State, which is a bad loss. I'm not surprised. They beat Marist. They've beat Davidson. I honestly think this is their year. This is their year to win that crap ass conference. So
I'll take Drake.
Yeah, like Drake does look damn good too, but I would love to see Dayton pull this off.
All right. See if the Flyers can do something about it. Here you go. The beautiful SoCon. Is it the Bears, Rev? Is this it? Mercer's going to take it?
It's Mercer's until they decided that they don't want it anymore. But the thing with the SoCon is at some point they tend to do this thing where like they want to stumble. It's like they just want to have a game where they're like, we'll lose this one. We don't need this win. And then it screws everything up. But as of right now, Mercer's defense is just lights out. So it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah, they play Western Carolina in 2 weeks. That'll give us the answer. But much like North Carolina Central and the CAA, William & Mary's the best team in the SoCon. They're 3-0 against the SoCon.
I'm waiting for the Southern slip up where the top team is supposed to be like the number 3 seed and they do something silly and then they're like the 6. So I'm going to trademark that one. In the Southland, you guys kind of already talked about it. Are we booking Incarnate Word, we think, Jamie?
Yep. I'll stick with Incarnate Word until proven otherwise.
Yeah. All right. Alrighty. And then the SWAC, we have the SWAC East, of course. We have the SWAC West. Jackson State's looking really good. Florida and A&M. Those two are probably going to be your top contenders. And then we know a certain coach who said that Alcorn State was going to look pretty good, didn't we, Rev? Didn't we, Jamie? Huh?
Yeah. And he's right. Good? They're going to play in that title game, and we'll see.
Heck yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, that kind of is a breakdown of the Midway Conference leaders, and we'll see if all those come true.
You got United.
You got the UAC and the Big South OVC.
Dang it. Rev, Google family. Rev, UAC. Go.
It's gonna.
You gotta do it.
It's gonna be Tarleton unless they stumble. It really is. Like they have managed to not screw up their games. And as much as I hate to say this because I can't stand them, when they play UCA at the end of the year, that's going to be your conference championship game probably, unless UCA manages to stumble beforehand. But it's got to be Tarleton.
Well, I will tell you, Tarleton should have lost that damn game last week. But refs don't know what a fumble looks like.
Exactly.
So exactly. That's where it goes wrong. They should have lost that game. I'm a little salty about it.
That's why I'm mad about picking them.
I know.
Big South OVC, Jamie?
SEMO, easy. Book it.
SEMO,
right. But UT Martin is going to be on the bubble for a playoff berth.
Very cool. Well, you can enjoy all the bubble talk and who's in and who's out when we do our mock playoff special the week before the selection. It is insane that sucker's coming up. So That means things are flying through. Things are going well, which means soon we'll be in Frisco eating tacos.
Taco King, coming to you from bright and sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It's time for a taco bet, and time for you losers to pay up.
Taco bet. Thompson's taco bets. Taco King was on last week. Love him. Saw him at the Dome against UND. With arguably the toughest game done, does MSU go undefeated in the regular season, says Stephen Wagner. I made this one simple, and I had a few individuals like Seth Myers and others that wanted things for taco bets. I had to take this one because it's Montana State praise season right now. So I made it really easy. Over under 0.5 losses for Montana State from now to the end of the regular season. So they've got 5 games remaining. They're going to host the Grizz at the end of it. I think UC Davis is probably the big one. Besides that, they shouldn't see much. Maybe Sac State, right? So there you go. You're basically predicting an undefeated Montana State or not. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll go under. I don't see them losing a regular season game. They're the 1 seed.
Ooh. All right, 1 seed undefeated. Ron, there you go, buddy. What do you think, Rev?
Now, for the sake of this bet, I'm going to take the over and think that they have a stumble somewhere along the way. Somebody plays up to them. They have a bad day. They get caught in some weather. They do something where they go against somebody who can actually stop their ground game. So just for the sake of the bet, I'm going to say that they do stumble somewhere along the way and take a loss.
Coach Vegan, love him. I'm going to go under as well. I'm going to predict them to run the table. I mean this in the nicest way possible because I just love chaos. There's a part of me that's like, I'd love to see, and I'm going to insult myself here too. I'd love to see a 10-2 NDSU, 11-1 SDSU, and 11-1 Montana State, just to see what happens with Montana State, NDSU in that scenario. And then NDSU gets the higher seed. NDSU could get the higher seed in that situation. I would just love for there to be absolute, murder chaos town. So.
In that situation, an undefeated Mercer gets the number 1 seed.
Oh, well, join us live for the mock playoff special, and you might find out how this is all going to go. I saw Jamie going in there hot. He's like, I don't know about that. All right. Well, let's get out of the taco bets quickly then.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. It's time for this week's quick hit questions.
Gentlemen, as you know, my favorite segment, the quick hit questions, because they can really be anything. Jordan Thule is going to kick us off, as is Kyler Elliott. Jordan says, how far does Idaho fall knowing how shaky the quarterback play has been since they keep getting injured? And Kyler says, does Idaho's health downgrade the dominating win by Montana State? Jamie, what do you think about those two?
I personally think Idaho's going to fall to the back third. I think they're kind of heading the wrong direction. Too many injuries to overcome. I feel bad for them, but that's the nature of the beast. It sucks, but health is important, and they don't have it. The best ability is availability. I almost screwed that up. But no, it doesn't downgrade the win because it was so dominant. So I think it's still Montana State still deserves their flowers for that one.
Absolutely. They don't control who's playing on the other side of the field. Seth Meyer, the man, the myth, the legend. Extra taco bet. How many playoff teams does the SoCon get? Over or under 2.5, Rev? 2.5. What do you think? This is a good one. Good job, Seth.
That is a good one. I'm going to take the under. I think they get 2. I think it's probably Mercer and Chatty who's going to do it. I don't think Western Carolina will make it through.
It'll be whoever wins that Chattanooga Western Carolina game.
Yeah.
Okay. Something to focus on there, folks. Chase Beckvar says, so the UAC, what's going on there? Sets up an unexpected huge game in 2 weeks with UCA, UNA. I gave you the conference champion talk there, Rev, on that one, since I forgot that beautiful conference. What do you think? What's going on there?
It's just the parity you see in that conference now. We said it kind of last year that the UAC was probably the more middle of the road, pretty evenly matched conference, and you're seeing that even more this year. UNA is not a bad team. I want people to remember this because I feel like they get the folks remember them transitioning in and having struggles, but they have a really solid team. Remember, they also rebounded from having a great rusher named Shunderick Powell leave their team and go to Central Arkansas. So, the UIC is up. Honestly, I said Tarleton. It really is up for grabs between 3 teams. It just depends on who's going to not let the others beat up on them. That's what it's going to take to get
if this team plays like they did the last 6 quarters, they'll be dangerous. But they got to find that consistency.
I was going to say, if Southern Utah can go and beat Central Arkansas and manage to keep playing through the schedule like they should, they are in the talk to potentially to be a bubble team in the playoffs, maybe even a conference champion, depending on how the rest of the conference goes. Like, there's so many different variables in this conference. I think more so than any of the other ones.
It's probably the most balanced conference overall.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of bottom feeders, but everybody is okay to better than okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Good eval. Good breakdown. Are either of the Illinois teams good, or is the Missouri Valley Conference purely a Dakota Conference, says Hank Kutzman? Right now, yeah, it's totally a Dakota Conference, like at a whole different level. I got to say, guys, Illinois State, despite the record, and Illinois State's probably going to get to 8 wins. They play Murray State remaining. They host Youngstown. They go to Northern Iowa, Indiana State. They're probably getting to 8. They might sneak a playoff seed, but they're not good. They're not a good team. They have some injuries. Their offense is very blah. The offensive line's not impressive. So they're big, but they're not athletic. I don't know. I don't think Illinois State's good. And I called UNI's downfall like 3 years ago. I'm like, there's a lot of problems there beyond just what is at face value. Northern Iowa is a bad team. So yeah, it is totally Dakota rain right now.
And I love this because every time the Dakotas are good, it pisses off UNI fans.
Yeah.
Great.
It really, they used to hold it all up, and boy, things have changed over the last 10, 15 years. Onifer wants to know, is there a SoCon team outside of Mercer who can run their remaining schedule and earn a top 8 seed in the playoffs? Jamie, top 8 seed possibility for Mercer?
Mercer for sure. But outside of Mercer, I think Western Carolina and Chattanooga, whoever wins that game, will make the playoffs. I don't see 2 top 8 seeds from the SoCon. Even if
okay, I got a fun add-on to this. Do you think we see, because it's like sometimes there's like, well, they were the undefeated week schedule, so they're the 8, right? Do you think we see a lot of those teams go like 10-11 while 8 goes to the 2-3 loss squads in stronger conferences, or do you think they still get that sort of favoritism? This is a unique one with 16 seeds this year.
Yeah, I think having 16 seeds is definitely going to change the thought process a little bit. But I still think strength of schedule is going to matter. Who you beat matters. So, we're halfway there. I don't know that somebody could just blitz a conference with a 100 strength of schedule and just say, okay, we're a top 4 seed.
Yeah, might be reserved more for the 13-14 range. It's going to be interesting. That's going to be fun. If the Grizz win out there, Rev, is there any chance ESPN brings game day back to Bozeman for the Bra of the Wild? Scott asked this. Scott also put a laughy emoji face, so don't be mean to Scott. Any chance, Rev?
I don't think so. That's all. I'm trying to be. I'm not going to be mean to him for that question because it's fun. It's a fun rivalry. It's always fun to have game day at good rivalry games versus these historic Big Ten games like Cal and whoever the hell they played that way. So really, it's fun for that. But no, I don't think so. If game day's not at the Marker this weekend, then I don't think any other FCS game's going to merit them showing up.
Right.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of good FBS games that week. When I looked earlier, that'd have to be a lot of chaos for them to go anywhere else, but probably Oklahoma.
That's not Army. That's not Army Navy too, is it?
Army Navy will be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be insane this year. How does that Central Arkansas loss to ACU look now that ACU went down to UNA? And thoughts on the close game with West Georgia? Jeremiah Rash, shout out to your Salukis. Carbondale's such a hard place to play, even if you're injury riddled. So love you and love your team. Jamie, what do you think?
It doesn't look much better, that's for sure. But again, I've kind of expected Central Arkansas to drop 1 or 2 here, and just because we thought North Alabama wasn't going to be that good doesn't mean that they can't be good and go beat somebody like they just did. Maybe Abilene has punched above its weight class for a while and they got caught.
There you go. The Rev asks this question. The Rev, is Cam Miller boring to watch? Is what he asks. Okay, before you storm the gates, Bison Nation, on him, since we're talking about Walter Payton possibilities, right? Compared to Walter Payton winners like Cooper Kupp and Trey Lance, Yes, at face value, of course, he's going to be a more boring player. Cam Miller is methodical and like a surgeon. And I will say this, like Trey Lance won with no interceptions, just like Cam Miller. But Trey Lance had this big booming arm, and he used his legs a lot, right? Cam Miller's most impressive thing under the new offensive coordinator, which is boring but effective, is the middle of the field. He is very effective in that midfield passing range. And if you would tell me this year that if I said there's a Missouri Valley quarterback with 1,500 yards, 12 touchdown passes, and no interceptions, and one of them has 6 interceptions, 11 touchdowns, and like 1,100 yards, you'd think Gronowski would be the first one, right? It's not. Gronowski's the second one. Cam Miller's the one with those statistics. So add on all the rushing touchdowns and stuff. It's crazy. So Rev, explain your boring question there.
Okay, before you guys come after me for this, realize I actually like Cam Miller, but I want to compare him to somebody else. I'm going to compare him to Wayne Gretzky, right? Everybody knows Wayne Gretzky's the absolute greatest hockey player to ever live. Have you ever sat down and watched Wayne Gretzky highlights? They're the absolutely most boring thing on the planet because Wayne Gretzky couldn't lift the damn puck. Apparently, either that or goalies just couldn't bend until 1995. So, like, that's just it. Like, I'm not saying that he's bad or that he's not a Peyton Award finalist. He will be a Peyton Award finalist. It's just like he's like your Toyota Corolla. He's dependable. He's getting things done for you without any sort of mental breakdowns. But it's not exciting to watch. That's all.
I will just say that that injury amongst everyone kind of says this could be the determining factor. You know, they're like, I guess not everybody can be the quarterback and make the Bison as good if he's that big of a deal. So, all right, I'll save it for Tuesday. With the Dakota Marker game up for grabs next week, says Kyler Elliott, what's your favorite FCS or FBS college football rivalry trophy? This is a great one. Great question. Rev, I know there's some big classics in your area of college football, the FCS level for sure, but any level of competition, what do you got?
So, I mean, I'm lucky that my alma mater plays for the tallest college football. It was Chief Caddo, which was a Native American chief cut out of a log. It's now they redid it. But my other favorite trophy is at the FBS level. I love the Jewel Shillelagh between USC and Notre Dame. I think that's probably one of the best trophies in college football, and I absolutely love watching that game.
That's beauty. What do you think there, Jamie Williams? You got one?
I'll stay in the FCS. I really like the River Bell Trophy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Southeast Louisiana. That's always a fun game, and it doesn't matter who's good at the time because there's a lot of motivation there, and it's gone the opposite way quite a few times. I enjoy that game a lot.
Very cool. I can't stand them, the goofers. I can't, but I like the pig.
Oh.
I like the Floyd pig. The Floyd of Rosedale is what they call. That's Iowa and Minnesota, I think, who play for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I like that they play for just a pig, and it's just funny to me. So I don't know the story behind it, but it's cool.
They play for two of the best trophies because they play for the Floyd of Rosedale, but then they play for Paul Bunyan's axe.
Yeah, Paul Bunyan's
How cool of a
axe
trophy
cool.
is that too? So
I kind of like the Old Oaken Bucket too.
And the Old Oaken Bucket's a good one. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Indiana, Purdue.
Yeah.
Since the Nickel's retired, I won't bring it up. But Dustin Perman ends the quick hits before we get to a game prediction. Is it ever okay to leave a game early, even if your team is up big? 22-year-old Matthew sat there, watched the third stringers all the way to the end. Had nowhere to be. Judged and hated anyone who left the stadium. 35-year-old, 3 kids, ages of 3, 5, and 8. I tell you what, buddy, if it's a blowout, we got diaper time, nap time, and things going on. So I'll say the stages of life determine your situation. Jamie, what do you got?
The other day, I was at JMU against Coastal Carolina. That was the longest game ever. It was 2 hours plus for the first half. We're destroying them. 12 minutes left in the fourth. It's already 11 o'clock. I got a 2-hour drive. I left. Sorry. Had to go. But if it was close, I would have stayed.
It seems with age, time changes a little bit. Then when you're retired, when you're 65, you just sit there. You ain't got nothing to do. Dustin, what do you got?
In 2012, SFA played Central Arkansas in Nacogdoches, and a foot of rain fell. And we did not leave that game. It was raining so hard that when they spotted the ball floated. And yet I sat through the entirety of that game. Now, I mean, after having a kid, like things do change if you have kids, right? Like, don't be a dick to your kids. If your kid's tired or, needs to leave, like, you don't need to stay for the rest of the game if you're winning big. Like, put your priorities in the right place. So I think depending upon your stage of life, I think there's different variables. So I don't think there is a yes or no correct answer to this question. I think you need to do the things that are best for you to do.
Absolutely. Now we just need Kyler here because he would just be like, screw your kids, get in the stand, have a beer. All right, guys. Besides the fact on the bottom banner says join FCS Gold for 99 cents, we're giving everybody a special treat here tonight. And that's going to be a game prediction. We used to do the game of the week. Well, we haven't done it in a while, and we're going to let you guys do it because guess what? I helped build the podcast, and this is one of my favorite rivalries, and it involves my team. So give you guys the floor to officially give your prediction for probably the biggest regular season game of the year, NDSU, SDSU in the Fargo Dome. Jamie Williams, your thoughts and prediction.
Like we said earlier, it's going to come down to who protects the ball, and one quarterback has 6 interceptions, the other one doesn't. I think it comes down to that. Protect the ball and run the ball, and NDSU finally breaks the streak. Bison win the marker back.
All right, Rev, what do you got?
I know I have on my Snorty hat, but more importantly, I have on my South Dakota State shirt for a reason. Like, South Dakota State, the past 3 games has been playing amazing football. And I don't see them losing that momentum going to Fargo. And they don't want to, because if they lose that momentum going to Fargo, then that means there's a chance that they have to go on the road in the playoffs somewhere potentially at some point, because they probably won't be a top 2 seed. And that there's a lot riding on this game. So I'm picking South Dakota State to win, but I do think it's going to be a very, very fun marker game to watch.
All right, 50-50. That means it is my job to break the tie this week, and I will do so Tuesday night. Jackrabbit Illustrated. It's going to be live. Make sure you join us. I was listening to Brennan and Zach Borg talking just today on their early show, and there were like 500 plus viewers on live. And I apologize, SDSU Jackrabbit Illustrated, if that's like normal for you. That's a crap ton of people on like a about to be NFL kickoff at noon. So very impressive. People are interested. Make sure you join us for that. And Rev, I'm going to give you the final moments here tonight because we just appreciate you hopping on with us. We're excited to see you in Frisco. Any final thoughts before we hit marker? More chaos, more fun in the FCS.
No, thanks for having me come on, as always. I feel like I'm a little bit standing on the shoulder of giants when it comes to doing the FCS podcasting with like y'all and Kyler and then like Zach and folks like that. But no, enjoy football. We are in October. Playoffs are coming quicker than you realize. And then it's just exciting. The season's been a fun one to watch. Just enjoy this weekend. Enjoy the rivalry games. Enjoy everything you can, because it's only going to get crazier after this.
Absolutely. We'll be there for the whole chaotic ride. Thank you so much for joining FCS Fans Nation. Enjoy the games. I'll see you in 2 weeks. They'll be back in 1. Catch you on the next one. Boom. Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe on YouTube. To listen ad-free and enjoy many other perks, join FCS Gold for only 99 cents a month by using the link in the description below. Make sure to follow FCS Fans Nation on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football.
I'm struggling here, fellas. I'm going to make it as long as I can.